All right, looks like we're live. Hello, everybody. My name is Marcus Baskerville, head brewer and co-owner of Weathered Souls Brewing Company. You guys are here right now to kind of speak about the Black is Beautiful initiative, from the creation to kind of the impact that has occurred over the last few months of the actual initiative. Um, so, kind of a little bit about me and the background of the brewery before we get into the actual physical initiative is. Weather Souls in San Antonio, Texas. We'll actually be celebrating our 4-year anniversary come November, so next month. Pre-COVID, things were going very well for us. We were really actually excited for CBC to come to San Antonio and participate in some of the different things that we were doing here, and kind of be our introduction to everybody. But then COVID happened, and we've obviously had to make some adjustments like everybody else has, and had to go through some of the other trials and tribulations that other have. So in the course of the last few months, I have been getting together the initiative, and we'll kind of talk about that and kind of the catalyst that started it, and where it's gone, and kind of where we plan on taking it even further past this current situation. Uh, Dealing with the initiative that was created off of thought processes that I was having on the way to Dallas Fort Worth. I was going out there to do a collaboration with a couple of friends at Turning Point, actually release a beer. And over the course of that ride, I was listening to the Breakfast Club. And on the Breakfast Club, it was Breonna Taylor's mom that was actually speaking. And she was speaking about what led up to her finding out the courses of actions of her daughter being murdered. From listening to that conversation, it really kind of struck me in a couple of different ways. One being that I have 2 young daughters myself, but then 2 is just the unjust that the Black community has felt over, I mean, generations at this point. And it's like, when is enough going to be enough? On the way back, I was listening to a lot of the protests going on and why people were protesting, why they were participating, and a little disappointment kind of stuck into me because I wasn't out there participating in these protests myself. And so, from there, I kind of, had a little source of disappointment. So over the course of the next day, I was actually having a conversation with Jeffrey Stuffings of Jester King Brewing Company, and we were talking about race relations, Trump, family, some of our frustrations dealing with COVID, and just having a general conversation among friends. So later on that day, it kind of still weighed heavy on me that I wasn't out there participating in these protests. And then the conversation that I had with Jeff, and the lingering of the conversation from Breonna Taylor's mom, all of that was still kind of floating in my mind at the time. So I reached out to Kevin Dyers of KD Design and asked him to create me a label for a beer release. And that was the first iteration of Black is Beautiful. And basically what I wanted to go ahead and do is was going to release a iteration of a stout that we did and release it here within the brewery, and kind of create something locally, donate some of the money to a local charity, and then give back that way. Since I was having that conversation with Jeffrey over the weekend, I went ahead and sent him that mock label. And his response was, I would understand if you don't want to, but you should turn this into a collaboration. And from there, I was like, you know what, Jeff, that's a wonderful idea. I was like, that's a great idea. Let's take this a step further. Let's make this a larger thing and kind of see where it goes from there. So the next thought process was, well, obviously, how am I going to do this, right? Being in San Antonio, Texas, especially Texas, the majority of our customer base is obviously Caucasian male. Specifically, mine is that general range of 40 to probably 60 because of the area that I'm currently in within San Antonio. So you look at those type of situations where now you have to kind of create this initiative, but present it in a way that you're not upsetting your customer base, right? But then also we have to look at the perspective of the brewing industry and the brewing industry in itself, right? We have over 8,000 breweries in the United States, and we know less than 1% of those are Black owned. We also know that, it's a very small percentage of Black people, people of color within the production side of the brewing industry as well. So being said that, you don't want to upset your peers and the general people that are in the community that you work in as well. So I spent the next 24 hours basically coming up with a mission statement. I'd sent it off to a couple of friends to kind of get their general ideas and what I should actually go ahead and do, if they thought it was a great idea or not. So we went ahead and sent some stuff off to the homies at Finback, Black Beer Travelers, Brandon, sent it off to my brother and a couple of friends, and kind of just got some ideas from some of the other Black people within the industry and those individuals that kind of have a like-mindedness to what we're experiencing. So from there, I woke up the next morning and basically couldn't sleep. So I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning that Monday morning and went to the brewery. From there, I went ahead and broke down the entire initiative front to back. So from the recipe, got the course of the label down, dealing with the actual initiative within itself, what we were asking for, the points of the initiative, and laid it down. By 11:30 that morning, I actually went ahead and presented it to my business owner, co-owner, and sales manager and manager in the tap room, and was like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and this is what we're gonna do. So what the actual physical Black is Beautiful initiative is, if you're not familiar with it is an initiative that supports equality and inclusion. It was a call to all of the breweries to participate in a collaboration. The beer that we ended up creating for this was a stout. And the reason why I created a stout for this was it kind of went hand in hand with the name. I actually had the Black is Beautiful name before I decided on the actual style of beer. But then when you looked at the name and the implications of what it meant and what I was trying to say with it, it kind of just made sense to go ahead and use the stout recipe for this. Something that we're more so known within our city, more so known within what we do, are the more sweeter stouts, pastry stouts. But something that I enjoyed getting into craft beer, something that I've enjoyed over the years, is that more traditional American style stout. The drier end, more balanced, a nice little dose of some bitterness to it, those chocolate aspects, those roasted aspects, So I thought it would be obviously the perfect time to go ahead and bring something like this back. So I worked on a traditional American style stout recipe, and we had Kevin update the label, and then kind of went from there. It was basically, a process of wanting to create something that was true to what we do at our brewery, but then also something that might be more presentable to the general masses or, the general population as far as what somebody is going to drink, something that's more approachable. And then the other aspect of the initiative is that these breweries create this recipe, brew this stout, and then donate 100% of those proceeds to local organizations, charities, foundations that support equality and inclusion. From there, we would hope that this will build some type of communication and dialogue amongst the brewers, brewing industry, and their local community. We look at the general consumption that Black people don't drink beer, or minorities don't generally drink beer. But what this is doing now is creating an aspect where the breweries are putting themselves out there to these communities that generally aren't hanging out within the brewing industry, within the beer scene, and different things like that, but creating dialogue, conversation, and then creating a source of unity between these new sources of the community that you normally wouldn't see within your brewery. But then the other aspect of it, obviously, is the conversation that's going to be had from the beer that that is presented or sold from those breweries. Just the name, the label within itself is a bold statement, and certain people are going to take it a certain way. So now this is time to have those general conversations of race and relations and equality and inclusion that you normally wouldn't have with somebody sitting next to you at a bar, somebody sitting next to you, even at home. I mean, a lot of these beers have become available in the retail settings, and so people are bringing these beers home, and these are conversations that younger generations can have with their parents or siblings or whatever the case may be. But it's opening a source of communication to discuss these hard to have conversations that as a nation we need to have right now. We look at the course of action of all of the things that are going on around the nation, especially leading up to a lot of the elections. And we look at the things that the Black community has been through and other minorities, people of color. And these are things that have gone on for generations and for a long time. And this is things that should have been curbed a long time ago. And so the fact that we're still having to have these conversations in 2020 is kind of the bigger aspect of it. But then we also look at how many people have involved themselves within this initiative now. So I think total we have over 1,170 breweries, over 21 countries, and then all 50 states. Originally, when I created this initiative, I thought that we were going to sit around maybe 200, 250 breweries, which to me was still a decent amount of breweries that involved themselves. But we ended up, I think, hitting that the first 48 hours of the initiative. And then there were a couple of larger name breweries that reached out, a couple of individuals that wanted to become partners, like Sam from Other Half, Stout Collective. And I realized at that point that this is going to end up being a little bit bigger than what we originally planned for. So in the course of that, I had to kind of think of a way to open it up a little bit more as far as the involvement goes. You can manage 200 or so breweries, but dealing with the aspect when you reach well over 1,000 breweries, it's kind of hard to manage all of those breweries in this project, especially when it's just pretty much me and my sales manager that have been running this initiative from the start with the help of a few other people. So we kind of loosened up some of the aspects of where you can place the donations. We kind of made it the brewery's responsibility to kind of become accountable as far as the donation process, as far as when they're releasing the beer, and the research of who they're going to donate their money to, who they're going to give their money to, and who they're going to provide that to. And within doing that, I also think that it kind of provided breweries more of a least to have a relationship with some of these organizations, because it'd be different if I said, okay, let's go ahead and donate this money here, or you donate this money here. But for you to actually take the time to physically kind of come up with a organization or charity that actually means something to you, that's meaningful to your brewery, meaningful to the employees that you have, that says a lot. And I think a lot of these organizations and charities are recognizing that in the instance of the individual breweries wanting to give back and different things like that. And then we look at the other aspect of the initiative, which was the long-term goals. So what long-term aspects are you going to put in place within your brewery, within your communities, to help give back past the initial initiative and the beer itself, right? So releasing the beer is one thing, and donating the money is wonderful. But after you release that beer and donate that money, then what's going to happen after that? Is it going to fall down the wayside? Is it a one and done thing? You feel like you've done enough and okay, that's it. But obviously there's the long-term goals, the long-term work that needs to be done past the initial physical donations within themselves. And so what we asked for breweries to do were think past those initial donations, and what are some of the things that you could do within your community? What are some of the things that you can do within your brewery to help push this even further? So creating achievable goals, right? So, for instance, we know Fremont is creating a program as far as assisting people of color getting into the brewing industry and helping them open breweries. We look at a couple other breweries that have started internships and partnerships to do the same thing. You look at the wonderful things that Brooklyn Brewing is doing with the Michael Jackson Foundation and wanting to give back and the amount of money that's being processed for that. I mean, you even look a couple months ago, a few of us had a phone call with AB InBev, and basically they wanted to have a conversation as far as ways that they can get involved within attributing to more Black people in brewing. What can they do to show some change within the brewing industry? So then you look at the program that they just released with the HBCUs and attributing scholarships to individuals from there that want to get into the brewing industry. So you look at those aspects and how Black is Beautiful, was a catalyst to that program starting. And that's huge. I mean, it's AB InBev, but it's still a huge moment to show that the craft brewing industry created a initiative that has transcended well past just the craft beer industry. You look at now the liquor industries are starting to get involved. Jägermeister went ahead and created a partnership for next year with us to want to involve themselves. They've donated about $10,000 through us, and I think $50,000 total through all of their other partner breweries that participated within this initiative. You have a couple of distilleries within Kentucky and around the world that are going to be releasing Black is Beautiful versions of whiskey and bourbon 2-4 years from now. So to see that this has actually transcended well upon the actual physical craft beer scene, I think that's been the most surprising and wonderful aspect of this initiative within the whole. You look at some of the media things that have happened with the initiative from the New York Times, Forbes, Zagat. There's been other multiple forms of media that have come through to support the initiative and want to give back. We recently did a commercial that's going to be featured with Indeed.com and highlighting the initiative and some of the things that have been going on dealing with social justice. You look at, we'll actually be going on, I think, the Kelly Clarkson show soon to discuss the Black is Beautiful initiative. So it's transcending well upon past just the actual craft beer scene and just the general customers that generally would gravitate towards something like this initial initiative. We look at the aspect of some retail companies that want to get involved now. So within the state of Texas, H-E-B is our general grocery store that we have here. So H-E-B wanting to create partnerships in line with the Black is Beautiful initiative and highlight it within their stores with end caps, highlighting the physical initiative itself and speaking about the main points of it. Walmart wanting to garner and hold the Black is Beautiful initiative as well and wanting to release that nationwide. So we look at some of the other aspects of what it's starting to transcend itself within to, and we know that this can generally grow even more. You look at all of the breweries that have involved themselves, and at 1,170 breweries, I mean, that's amazing, right? Would have never thought that this many physical breweries would involve themselves in something that is in line with social justice, in line with racial equality. But then we also look at the fact that you look in history, and that's never been done before. I mean, yes, we're all breweries, right? But that's 1,100 plus separate businesses that are moving the commerce to support equality and social justice. And everybody that has involved themselves within this initiative should pat themselves on the back, because we are literally making history right now as far as what we're doing and what we're contributing to, I mean, pretty much the world at this point, especially with over 20 countries that have involved themselves within the actual physical initiative. So yeah, everybody should be proud of themselves that have actually physically involved themselves within it. But then we also look at that there is only 1,170 breweries that are involved, and we know that there are over just 8,000 breweries within the United States within itself. So we definitely know that we still have a long ways to go as far as the contribution and the tributes that the brewing industry and the craft brewing industry can place within this Black is Beautiful initiative. It's still up to the general consumers, the customers, to go ahead and share, tag your favorite breweries, breweries that aren't involved, ask them to get involved. Breweries look at, and I know this is COVID times and everybody can't produce a 10, 20 barrel stout and donate 100% of those proceeds. But something to think about is a small batch, releasing, a keg within the tap room, releasing, a small batch of 5 barrels or less. There's been so many different partnerships created within this initiative that a lot of different people wanted to kind of alleviate the costs associated with this. So you look at, there's been support from grain distributors, hop companies, yeast companies, Midwest Barrels for actual physical barrels for those who want to barrel age it. You got Creative Mango as far as label support goes, KD's design for label support. You have American Canning as far as support for actual canning purposes within the Black is Beautiful initiative. So we look at all of the general partnerships and people who have wanted to kind of help you guys save money. There's not a lot of reason to not involve yourselves. It's something that you should look at that is necessary in a sense. We look at where we are within 2020 and we see the lack of effort that the United States has actually made. We look at the police abuse, the still systematic racism that is involved within the United States. You look at some of the demographic aspects of different industries, not just the brewing industry. And we know we have a long ways to go. We know we have a long ways to actually make change. And I think that based off of the reception that the brewing industry has made towards this initiative, we know that we are leaders within that, and we are individuals within that can actually go ahead and make these changes. It's just up to us to continue to push this message, to continue to fight the good cause. And the more people that support this initiative, the more people that garner this beer, that sell it, or the more people that are getting this message out there to the rest of the individuals who actually need to physically hear it. Black is Beautiful is something that is within the statement of the name is pretty blatant, right? I'm somebody that has dealt with systematic racism, somebody that has dealt with derogatory statements because of the color of my skin, even dealing with the brewing industry. I remember the first beer festival that I worked for out here in Texas, and this is when I was an assistant brewer prior to Weather Souls, and this woman comes up to me and she was like, "Oh, well, what do you do for this brewery?" And I was like, "I'm one of the brewers." "There's a Black brewer in Texas?" And you even look now, and I think that was almost 7 years ago, and the amount of Black brewers that we have here, I mean, I know of maybe 5. As far as head brewers, I know of 2. And then as far as ownership within the state of Texas, as far as Black people go, I think there's 2, me and one other individual that I actually found out about recently. So we look at those different things, and we know that there can obviously still be growth, there could still be change, and this initiative could definitely lead the way towards that. And even some of the catalyst of the other things that have come up about since this initiative that kind of still push the same message, kind of still push the same conversations. All of those are things that you can go ahead to do to contribute to this and give back. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the Black is Beautiful initiative from the creation and some of the impact that it's done. And I just want to thank every individual that has involved themselves within the initiative, from brewing it to purchasing the beer to spreading the message to tagging their favorite breweries. If you've done anything at all to support this initiative, It means everything from the bottom of my heart, and a lot of other individuals appreciate that as well. So hopefully, we see some more involvement. If anybody ever has any questions related to the initiative, even any suggestions, I'm always open to suggestions to keep pushing the message. Please go ahead and email me. And yeah, I appreciate everybody. And thank you for listening today. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the conference. Cheers.